Good morning, everybody. I hope you're doing well, you're safe, and you're healthy. A couple of days ago, while I was spending some time with Jesus in the silence and the solitude, I came upon one of my favorite Psalms, Psalm chapter 39. And I thought it'd be a good psalm to share with you, especially as we're living through these unprecedented times here in America due to coronavirus. What I want to do is I want to read Psalm 39, starting in verse 1 and reading through verse 7. And then we'll sort of pick it apart and we'll apply it to where we are today. So here it is. I'm going to read from the Amplified version of the Bible. It is a psalm written by King David, second king of Israel, one of the greatest kings Israel ever had. Here's what he says. I said, I will take heed and guard my ways, that I may sin not with my tongue. I will muzzle my mouth as with a bridle, while the wicked are before me. I was dumb with silence. I held my peace without profit, and had no good comfort away from good, while my distress was renewed. My heart was hot within me. While I was musing, the fire burned. Then I spoke with my tongue. And here's what David says. Lord, make me to know my end and to appreciate the measure of my days, what it is. Let me know and realize how frail I am. Behold, you have made my days as short as handbreadths, and my lifetime is as nothing in your sight. Truly, every man at his best is merely a breath. Selah. Pause and think calmly of that. Surely every man walks to and fro like a shadow in a pantomime. Surely for futility and emptiness he is in turmoil. Each one heaps up riches, not knowing who will gather them. He then finishes this thought in verse 7 by saying, And now, Lord, what do I wait for and expect? My hope and expectation are in you. So, a little background on this. Psalms 37 through 40 are psalms that are dealing with personal sin and its effects on a person, specifically King David. And as we see here in Psalm 39, it was his sin that caused him to fall into distress. And you see this even more clearly as you read through the psalm to the end. In other words, David was struggling with personal sin. He doesn't say what it is necessarily. It does say in verse 1 that he would not sin with his tongue. In other words, that his words would not be sinful or cause hurt to other people. But he doesn't go into a whole lot more detail than that. What we do know is it was weighing him down. We saw the same in Psalm 37 and Psalm 40 as well. And he was dealing with this, and he was dealing with it in a very real way. And so you get the sense that the stress, the distress, the struggle that he's dealing with was starting to boil over within, to the point where finally in verse 3 he says, my heart was hot within me. And then he finally spoke out. And the interesting thing is he directs his conversation, he directs his words to God himself. And in essence, he begins to pray. He says, Lord, make me to know my end and to appreciate the measure of my days, what it is. Now, this is an interesting prayer because a lot of times as Christians, we are praying for God's favor, we're praying for God's power, for his glory to fall. We're granting requests, or praying for requests, I should say. God would be the one who grants the requests on behalf of other people. We are praying through other types of scriptures and claiming God's power in our lives, those types of things. This prayer is a little different. In essence, David is praying that God would help him to understand and to appreciate the length of his days. He goes on to state he already knows that his days are fleeting. They are short, like a handbreadth, which was a unit of measurement, and it was not a very large unit of measurement. He goes on to state that every man at his best is merely a breath. He's this person who's like a shadow here one moment and then gone the next. And he's saying, Lord, help me to understand these things. In other words, help me to put my life in perspective. And as he's coming to grips with this perspective, he's realizing that time really is short. And man, even at his best, is a breath, a shadow, a phantom, as it says in Ecclesiastes. So as he's dealing with his own personal sin and he's wanting to understand the nature of his life and come to grips with this futility, this frailty of life, it leads him to a question, which I think is the crux of the whole psalm. And we saw it in verse 7. He says, and now, Lord, what do I wait for and expect? In other words, here I am. I'm wrestling with my own personal sin. I'm dealing with and learning to understand that my life is numbered, and what I think is important, what I am at my best, really isn't going to change a whole lot in the grand scheme of things. He says, what is there for me? What should I wait for? What should I expect? Maybe another way to look at this is, what should my focus be? Where am I going to find my meaning? And he gives the answer. My hope and expectation are in you. In other words, my hope and my expectation are in God. This is where I find my meaning. This is where I find my power, if you will. This is where I find what I'm looking for. I would say, and whether or not David was thinking of this specifically, I believe it works. This is where I'm going to find my fulfillment. This is where I'm going to find my peace. This is where I'm going to find my joy, my love, my acceptance. I'm going to find it in you, God. So here we are. I don't know if you're dealing with personal sin, but I do know that we are living in distressing times. Just turn on any news outlet and you're going to see this. We see it in our own families at times for different reasons. We see it in our marriages. We see it in our communities. And it's a reminder that life at times can feel futile. That even at our best, we are limited in what we can change, even influence. So what hope is there for us? The hope, folks, whether we're dealing with coronavirus, a rough time in our marriage, whether we're dealing with personal sin, trials of many kinds, our hope is found in God. I want to encourage you during these days to wait upon God, to spend time in the silence, the solitude, the stillness, where it's you and Him, His Word, seeking His face, allowing Him to give you the meaning, the joy, the peace, the love, the power that you are looking for. Lord bless you. Have a wonderful day.